Okay, this one says the floor of a shed has an area of 104 feet squared. It is in the shape of a rectangle, so I drew not a great rectangle, but a Heidi rectangle. And whose length is 3 feet less than twice the width. Find the length and the width, and use the area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. Okay, so let's go back again. Remember, we've read these things 3 or 4 times. I won't do that many times here, but in general, you're going to need to do that. So we know the area part. If we make our formula kind of like this and get ready to replace things that we know something about, we know the area is 104. They told us that. The area is 104 feet squared, or square feet. So we can plug in 104 for A. Now, this tells us some things here about the length and the width. It says the length is 3 feet less than twice the width. So what I like to do, we don't know either of these. So what I like to do is kind of give us some parentheses here to represent each value here in a minute. And since both of them are unknown values, I like to make them both x. Now, if they're both x and that's just the way we leave it, that would mean that they're the same number. And we know that they're not the same number based on what the problem told us. But to start with, we need to just make them both have x. This x representing the length and this x representing the width. And then we need to go back in to the question and make some adjustments here. We're not going to get rid of the x. The x is going to stay in both positions. But we are going to put some additional information in with one of the x's. So we'll come back here and we'll say, okay, the length is, and then it gave us some more information about the length. The length is 3 feet less than, so 3 less than something means you're subtracting 3. 3 feet less than. 3 feet less than twice the width. So we know the width right now is x, so twice the width is 2x. The length is 3 feet less than twice the width. And here's the width. That's all the adjustment we need to make. So now that we have that, from there we can go ahead and work on finding out what the length and the width are. Now, we're going to keep this part in parentheses. This x by itself doesn't necessarily have to be in parentheses. It can be just sitting there, or it can sit on the front end. It doesn't really matter. Either way, that both of those are the same thing. So we're going to need to distribute this x, and so we have 104 equals 2x squared minus 3x when we distribute that x to both numbers. Then we have exponent of 2, so we know we're going to have to use some other form of solving for x than the traditional. In this case, we're going to use factoring. So we'll subtract 104 from both sides. And so we have 2x squared minus 3x minus 104. Now at this point, we're going to multiply the first and last and list the factors of 208. Let's see here. They're going to be pretty close together, so it's going to be pretty far down the line. Let's see here, 4 and 52. We know the large one's going to be negative, and because it made a negative, the small ones are going to be positive. So see right here, we're not really getting very close to it, because this gives us a negative 48. So You know, I might try something that's a little bit bigger and see what happens. I'm going to jump down to maybe 8 and go, okay, 8 goes into 20 twice. That's 16, so 48. So here's 8 and 26. So I'm getting closer. These are still 18 apart, not 3 apart. So we're going to keep on going. We'll do 16. Let's try 16. Normally I just tell you to make the list, but when it's bigger numbers, sometimes you can just kind of skip a few and see how it works. So let's see, and 48 is 3, 13 and 16, right there it is. So actually it goes 13 and 16 with the small on the left, large on the right. 13 times 16, I'm going to double check that because I'm doing this in my head, so that can always be dangerous. And we have 8, 10, 2. Yep, there it is. Okay, so the large one is negative, the small one is positive, and that's the set that made -3. So we can't pop that right into our set because this started with something other than 1. So we're going to have to do factor by grouping. So we're going to put in that positive 13x, negative 16x, negative 104. And then when we do our factor by grouping, we're going to pull out x over here, and we're going to get 2x plus 13. And we want this side to say exactly the same thing, 2x plus 13. So how do you get, what do you multiply by to have 2x become negative 16x? It would be negative 8. And you can double check that. Negative 8 times 13 should land you up here to negative 104. So we have our two sets of factoring now. We have what was in the parentheses, and we have what's not in the parentheses. All right, now we want to find out our value for x. And so we're going to make each of these as if they're their own problem equal to 0. And we're going to work on getting x alone. Now we're going to subtract 13x here, or 13, excuse me, not 13x, and then divide by 2 on both sides, and we get negative 13 over 2. And over here, we're going to add 8 to both sides, and we get 8. Now we're talking about the length of a side. We said the width was just x. A length cannot be negative. So this is not the answer, but this is. So the width being just plain x, we said. The width, the plain x was just the width. So now we know x was 8. And to know the length, you're going to have to plug that 8 in for x in this part. So 2 times 8 minus 3. So 16 minus 3 is 13. So this dimensions of this was 8 and 13.